Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm filming my June reading wrap up. I think I read 12 books in June, which is pretty average for me. It's not like that great of a reading month, but it's not the worst. And I think most of the books I read this month I rated a 4 or 5 stars, which is like obviously great. But I'm not gonna lie, in the latter half of this month I have kind of been in a bit of a reading slump because of one specific book which I'm still yet to finish. It is none other than the incredibly popular TikTok book Fourth Wing, and I'm a bit mad that it has put me in a slump. Like, I was lied to. So let's just get started. First, a couple books I'm not really going to go that in depth for various reasons. First one is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare, because while I did finish it in June, I talked about it a lot more in depth in my May wrap up because I read a lot more books from this universe then. So if you want me to tell you like what this book's about and stuff, just go watch that video. Rated it a 3 stars. That's pretty much been like my average rating for the Mortal Instruments series. But I'm really glad I finally finished that series, and I'm just gonna say there is no reason for this book to be over 600 pages. Like, it was so long for no reason. And also another book I'm not going to talk too much about was my reread of this book. I gave it a 4 stars, but tell me why this book took me so long to get through. Like, I low-key forgot how fucking slow this one was. Kid you not, I was probably reading this for about 20 days. And for me, that is like unheard of. But like I said, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't like the author, so I don't want to spend too long on it. Let's get started on some books I actually am going to go a lot more in depth on. The first one is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I was on a bit of a TJ Klune kick this month. Let me just say, I loved this. So this book follows Wallace, and Wallace, he's a bit of a dick. Let's just say that. And Wallace ends up dying. He is dead, and he is like a ghost kind of, and he's like watching his own funeral, and then all of a sudden this person comes and she can see him, and she's like, you're coming with me, I'm a Reaper, and I'm going to take you to this like place where we can help you cross over to like the other side afterlife thing. So she takes him to this like small town where there's this like tea shop, and the tea shop is a bit of a front for this business this woman and this other guy Hugo has, where they basically help like spirits come to accept their death and pass on to the afterlife. This is a bit of like a cozy fantasy. I say it in quotation marks because obviously it talks a lot about like death and grief and stuff like that, which I don't know if that would really be considered cozy, but you know, it's like set in a tea shop and not much happens. I mean, if you read The House in Cerulean Sea, which is TJ Klune's most popular book, which I read last year and loved, it's like similar vibes to that. But I also loved this one. I gave it a 5 stars. It was just so good. There is also a bit of a romance subplot between Wallace and Hugo, one of the like people who helps him pass over. It was also so sad. At the end, I was bawling my eyes out. Like, I put this book down and was just staring at the wall. These books are just so perfect. They are really bingeable. You can literally just sit and read them in one sitting. That's usually what I do with these books. I mean, on the back, V.E. Schwab loved it as saying like being wrapped up in a big gay blanket, and honestly that is the perfect description for the book. I also really loved Wallace's character development. Like, he truly had some of the best character development I've ever seen, and I loved all the characters so much, and the found family and the dog. I cried so much reading this. Speaking of V.E. Schwab, I also read Dog Duet by V.E. Schwab this month. So this book is the sequel to This Savage Song, and this is a duology. I read This Savage Song a couple months ago now, and I gave it a 4.25, I believe. I gave this one a 4 stars. While I did enjoy it, the ending was just a bit disappointing for me. Essentially, in This Savage Song, you have this city, and it's basically been like split in 2 because of this like war that has gone on. And the war happened because the city was basically overrun by these monsters, and these monsters are created by tragedies, by murder and violence and things like that. And there were 3 different types of monsters. Each different monster is developed why am I losing my voice? A different type of like tragedy. So like depending on how bad the like violent act is, it depends on how like dangerous and powerful the monster is. So these books are dual POV and we follow Kate and August. Kate and August are both the heirs to like the leaders of like the rival parts of the city. August is also one of the monsters, which is really cool. And basically August is tasked with disguising himself as a human and infiltrating like the school Kate attends, because there's kind of like another territory war brewing. And it also has a bit of like a forbidden love romance subplot going on. I really enjoyed this. It was really entertaining. These books are just so fast paced, which is something I love so much about them. Like you can just read them like that, especially this one because it had so many pages which were literally just filled like this. So despite it being like 450 pages, it's just such a fast read, and the chapters are short, which is great. I really enjoyed this and it was so fun reading it, but the ending really disappointed me. I don't know, it just sort of felt like So I then did my reread of the second and third book of the Raven cycle. So we have the Dream Thieves and Blue Lily, Lily Blue. I gave both of these a 4 stars. So the Raven cycle follows Blue, and Blue's whole family are like psychics and she can like see the dead and just loads of like supernatural stuff. And there's basically this school full of like rich boys in her town and Blue hates them. Like they're basically all assholes and she does not like them. However, she ends up befriending a group of them, and this group of Raven boys, if you will, they're like obsessed with this Welsh king and finding this dead Welsh king to get this wish. Like it's kind of weird and hard to describe what this book is about because this series is basically just all vibes, no plot, and she kind of ends up helping them. But Blue has also been told since she was really young that if she ever kisses her true love, he will die. So there's also that going on, and you know, of course there's going to be some like romance subplots. Like I said, this series is just all vibes, no plot, and honestly that is why I love it. These books, they're just so good, they're so fun, the characters are amazing, the romance subplots are phenomenal. I just love them so much. I will say, however, it was criminal that this book had no Ronan Lynch POVs. But it's all fine, it's all fine. I still need to finish my reread of the last book in this series, which I'm hoping to do in July, but we'll have to see. Then read If You Still Recognize Me by Cynthia So. This is like a YA contemporary coming of age kind of book with some like romance aspects to it, and it's sapphic as well. This book very much reminded me of like Alice Oseman type book and like writing. So if you like Alice Oseman, I would highly recommend you pick this up. Basically it follows Elsie, and Elsie has this like internet best friend and she has a bit of a crush on her. However, her internet best friend lives like in America and she's from the UK, and Elsie is kind of like struggling with her feelings and whether or not she should tell her crush whether she likes her. And while she's dealing with all of that, her like old best friend who moved away when she was younger comes back. They kind of spend the summer reconnecting and getting to know each other again. She may realize she has some feelings for her as well. This was just so cute. It was just perfect summer vibes. I was reading this like outside while I was tanning during the like heat wave we had in the UK recently. It was so cute, and I also really loved how it talked so much about fandom and fan fiction and stuff like that, because that is a topic that has very much impacted my life and I have been very involved in for like years now. I also like how it kind of subtly touched on how the sapphic couples and the non-white couples often get like brushed aside and overshadowed by, you know, your white gay couples. Because as someone who has been part of a lot of queer fandoms and read a lot of queer fan fiction, I can definitely tell the disgusting amount of misogyny and like subtle racism that goes on, in which a lot of the particularly sapphic couples just get completely brushed over and ignored and don't get anywhere near as like fan fiction written about them or edits made about them compared to their gay or straight counterparts. So I really liked how it touched on that because that's a topic I feel very strongly about. If you're looking for a cute, quick, easy, sapphic read to just read in a couple sittings over summer, maybe when you're on like holiday or something, I just think this book is perfect. On a very different note, I then picked up Gild by Raven Kennedy. Gild follows Oren, and Oren is a saddle for King Midas. I don't know how you say his name, but it is a King Midas retelling. I have no idea what the original story is, so I can't really say how faithful it is, but take it as you will. She is his saddle. She's basically a prostitute, and she has like Stockholm syndrome. He treats her horribly. He literally keeps her in a cage and doesn't let her out. He doesn't let her like talk to anyone, but she thinks he's in love with her. He treats her amazingly. He's just doing it to protect her. So like you can very obviously tell as a reader that she has some Stockholm syndrome going on. And Oren is also his like best saddle, his like prized possession, if you will. Like she's his favorite basically, and King Midas has this power where he can turn things into gold, and he has literally turned Oren into gold. And then in like a war deal, King Midas trades Oren off so he can get like men for his army or something. And Oren is like, what? I thought he loved me. Why is he doing this to me? And then she kind of realizes that maybe he does not treat her as well as she thinks he does. And it's kind of about her overcoming her Stockholm syndrome, although by the end of this she definitely had not overcome anything, but I'm hoping in the later books she will. It's basically just like a dark romance fantasy, although was there much romance in this one? Not really. Like it's just kind of one of those books which it's not good, but it's fun, I guess, and it's just a quick, easy read. I did give it a 4 stars. Oh, I don't know if I said, but I gave If You Still Recognize Me a 4 stars as well. I had a lot of 4 stars this month. And the last physical book I read this month was Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. Also, can we appreciate the floppiness? Yes, that is what I love to see. As we follow Joan, and Joan basically discovers her family are monsters. It's a really cool concept. I've literally like never heard of anything like this before, but they can basically take time from humans. So like they will take like a certain amount of time off the end of their lives, so maybe like a few months or a year or even like a few years off the end of their life, and with that time they can time travel. And then there's also like different monster families, and each of the monster families have their own special gift. Joan is working at this museum and she kind of has this crush on this boy called Nick, and they're supposed to go on a date, and then she accidentally time travels like a few hours into the future and she misses the date. Something happens and she finds out that Nick, he's not just like a cute boy from the museum, he's actually this like legendary monster hunter. So Joan basically has to like time travel back in time to try and escape and save her whole family from being murdered by him. I will say this book was incredibly different from what I was expecting. Basically something I did not know going into this is actually a love triangle between Joan, obviously, Nick, and this other guy called Aaron. And Aaron, he is basically another monster, and he is the son of like the most powerful monster family who hates Joan's family. And Aaron and Joan basically have to team up to try and take down Nick. And I will say, I much preferred Aaron. I was going into this expecting like enemies to lovers, meant to kill you to lovers, but I much preferred the whole Aaron and Joan little romance. Not that they had much of a romance, but you know, that's just like the vibe they had. It got a 4 stars. It was fun, it was enjoyable, it's fairly short. I'm excited to see where this series will go. I will say this is definitely like read very YA, not that that's a bad thing obviously, because this literally is a YA book, but it kind of read on the younger side of YA for me personally. But I did really enjoy it, and I'm excited to see where the series is going to go. I read And the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. Like I said, I was on a bit of a TJ Klune kick this month. So this is basically like a dystopian where majority of humans have been wiped out by robots. And we follow Victor, and Victor, he's a human, and he has basically been raised by Giovanni, who is this robot who basically like adopted him, and they're kind of living in this like little tree house, and they've kind of like adopted some other little robots along the way. Victor likes to go looking in like a scrapyard for parts to build stuff and like expand the tree house, and he's like found some other little robot friends. TJ Klune does fan family so well. It's like always something he just excels in. So if you love fan family, I would recommend any TJ Klune book, honestly. And one day when he's hunting in the scrapyard with his little robot friends, he comes across this new robot called Hap, and he basically decides he's gonna like take Hap in, rebuild him and bring him back to life, more or less. However, something goes wrong and he ends up alerting like the robots where he is, and the robots basically come looking to kill him because, like I said, the robots have wiped out all humans and they're still trying to wipe them all out. While Victor and like his other little robot friends end up hiding away, these robots end up taking Giovanni, who's like basically Victor's dad, and they're basically going to either decommission him or reprogram him, which is obviously not what they want. So they go on a little mission adventure to recover Giovanni and basically save his life. I will say, compared to TJ Klune's other works, this one is definitely a lot more high stakes and action packed. I gave it a 4.5. It was not quite like a 5 stars because it just didn't quite have that like cozy fantasy feel, but it was still a really fun time. I really loved it. The found family was so good. There's also, like in most of TJ Klune's books, a little gay romance subplot. I then listened to the audiobook. This was the only audiobook I think I really listened to this month, which is weird for me, but I listened to the audiobook of Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus, and again, I loved it. I gave it a 4.5 stars. So Elizabeth is this like TV star. She has this like cooking show, and it's basically kind of like revolutionized America. Like, she's very unique, and the cooking show is very unique, but she's kind of like created this whole uproar, if you will, with the women around the US. However, the majority of this book actually takes place long before she has this cooking show, and we basically just follow her whole life up to her creating this cooking show and the impact of this show, because she used to be a chemist before she was like this TV star. However, obviously because of the time period, she was not treated well whatsoever. Like, there was a lot of discrimination against her. She was just so much misogyny. It made me so angry at points, and I just really enjoyed it, and I think as an audiobook experience it was phenomenal. I also really think, I don't often say this, but I think this book as a TV show would be so good. I don't know if it's getting adapted. I feel like it could be, but I feel like it would just be a great show to watch. And I feel like this is a very popular book, but I think it's definitely worth the hype, and I really enjoyed it. And then the last ebook I read this month was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. We follow two characters, Shane and Eva. I think that was her name. I'm very sorry if it was not. They have kind of been through a lot in their life. They did not have the best childhoods. Shane, I'm pretty sure, was in like the foster system. Eva's mum basically neglected her. Like, they have not had the best start to life. Shane is also struggling a lot with addiction. Eva's struggling with self-harm. Like, such a trigger warnings, this book is very deep and dark at times. And when they're teenagers, they kind of have this week together where they basically like fall in love. Now it's like years later and they meet at this like literary event because they are both like best-selling authors, and they very much changed. They very much matured, you know, they've got their shit together, if you will. They see each other and they kind of re-spark, if you will, their little connection they had over that 1 week. I adored this. I gave it a 4.75. It was so good. I also loved how it talked so much about Eva's chronic illness. I find I really like with my romance books when they're a bit more on the, I guess, lit fic side of things, which this book definitely was. And I just really liked it, and I had such a good time with it, and it's definitely one of my like new favorite romance books. Anyway, these are all the books I read in June. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a good time, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.